Every time you hop on a plane, there's this whole hidden world operating right in front of you, just out of sight. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret codes, the weird science, and the surprising rules of flying that airlines don't exactly advertise.
Think about it. From that flimsy boarding pass in your hand to the little chimes you hear mid-flight, everything has a hidden meaning. So what is really going on while you're cruising miles above the Earth? Well, let's dive in and find out.
Let's start with something you've probably held a million times, but never really looked at closely: your boarding pass. It's way more than just a ticket to get on the plane. It's a document that's packed with coded information, all about you.
See that little 6-digit code? That's your passenger name record, or PNR. You can think of it as your own personal digital fingerprint for the whole trip. It links to everything: your passport info, where you're going, and yeah, sometimes even your credit card details. And that is exactly why you should always shred your boarding pass, not just toss it in a bin at the airport.
Now, while you're scanning your pass, there's one 4-letter code you never, ever want to see. It can completely change how your travel day goes. SSS. So, what on earth could that mean? Well, it stands for Secondary Security Screening Selection. And if you see this printed on your ticket, just get ready for a much more personal security check. It's a flag, and it can be triggered by stuff that seems totally innocent, like if you book a one-way flight at the last minute or pay with cash. It doesn't mean you're in trouble, but your quick trip through security is, well, it's over.
All right, let's move on from the gate and actually get on the plane. Because once you're strapped in and in the air, the cabin environment itself starts playing all sorts of tricks on your body, especially on your senses.
Have you ever wondered why airline food tastes so bland? I mean, it's not totally the chef's fault. See, the combo of low humidity and low pressure in the cabin dries out your sinuses. And as you can see here, that makes your ability to taste sweet and salty things drop by up to 30%. Airlines literally have to pack their food with extra salt and spices just so it tastes like anything at all. But here's a wild little life hack for you. It turns out the loud, constant drone of the airplane engines also messes with your sense of taste. So if you want your meal to taste a little better, pop on some noise-canceling headphones. Seriously. By blocking out that hum, you can actually trick your taste buds into working a little better. And how about all those little dings and chimes you hear during a flight? They're not just random noises. It's actually a secret language for the crew. A single chime could be something simple, like a heads up about turbulence, or it could just be the pilot asking for a cup of coffee. 2 chimes usually means you're passing through 10,000 feet. But 3 or more chimes, that's the one to listen for. It usually signals something more serious, like a medical situation.
Okay, let's talk about some of the things that make people nervous. You're in a metal tube, miles up in the sky. It's totally natural to think about the potential dangers, but the reality of these threats and the incredible ways we deal with them is pretty fascinating.
I mean, that statistic sounds absolutely terrifying, right? But here's the secret: it's not actually dangerous for the plane. Airplanes are designed to be what's called a Faraday cage. The metal shell of the plane lets the electricity from a lightning strike just wash over the outside and exit right back into the sky, leaving everyone inside totally safe. It's pretty amazing.
Now, a much more common and honestly a more serious threat is a bird strike. We're talking over 13,000 of them every year in the US alone. They can cause real damage. So the question is, how do you keep birds away from these gigantic, wide-open spaces at airports?
Well, airports have gotten seriously creative. Some use cannons to fire blanks and scare birds off. Others get rid of any ponds or grass that might attract them. Some airports have even used pigs to wander around and eat gull eggs. And my personal favorite, one airport uses giant LED screens with huge blinking googly eyes to act as high-tech scarecrows. You can't make this stuff up. As passengers, we really only see one side of the whole air travel experience. But behind the cockpit door and tucked away in hidden compartments, there's a whole different world for the flight crew, with its own secret rooms and really surprising rules. So on those really long overnight flights, ever wonder where the flight attendants disappear to for a few hours? Well, on a lot of big planes, there are secret bedrooms, usually hidden above the main passenger cabin. You might see a totally normal-looking locked door that actually leads to a tiny staircase and a little room with beds where the crew can get some sleep. Having a good working relationship in the cockpit is absolutely critical for safety. And to make sure that happens, many airlines have something called a Do Not Pair list. It lets a pilot officially list any other pilot they have a serious personal conflict with. The airline scheduling system then makes sure they are never, ever assigned to fly a plane together. It sounds a little like high school, but it's a really important safety tool.
And this is exactly why those crew rest areas and drama-free cockpits are so important. A survey by the British Airline Pilots Association came back with some really shocking numbers. Take a look at this chart. A staggering 56% of pilots admitted they had fallen asleep in the cockpit before. That one statistic really shows you just how critical those mandated rest periods and, frankly, modern autopilot systems really are.
So, we've talked codes, we've talked food, we've talked dangers, but let's end this with the one question that pretty much every nervous flyer has on their mind. If the absolute worst were to happen, where is the safest place to sit on an airplane?
Well, believe it or not, Time magazine actually analyzed 35 years of aviation crash data to find the answer. And looking at the results, there's a pretty clear pattern. It turns out the seats in the back third of the plane have historically had the highest survival rate, at 68%, much better than the middle or the front.
And we can get even more specific. The data showed that the single safest seats are the middle seats in the very back of the plane. They had a 72% survival rate. And the worst? The aisle seats in the middle of the aircraft. It seems it's less about being near an exit and more about being cushioned from the points of impact.
So now you know about the secret codes, why your tomato juice tastes better in the air, and statistically where the safest seat on the plane is. The hidden world of flying is now just a little bit more visible. So the only question left is, will you ever look at flying the same way again?